Hey everybody, how's it going? This is something I've been working on called Campaign Cauldron. It's a desktop application you could download and install on your machine. Works on Windows only for the meantime. And this is for game masters who want to invite their players to contribute ideas to the campaign in order to A, take a little bit of the creative burden off yourself, but also B, encourage your players to get more invested into the campaign by adding their own characters from their backstory or locations that are meaningful to their characters or maybe some themes that they're relate to their characters overall arcing narrative that they have in mind, and use those ideas as ingredients for session preparation. So basically, an easy way to ask your players what is exciting to them and directly use that inspiration in preparing sessions that are centered around your players and their characters. So, what we're going to do today is we're going to go through a tour of Campaign Cauldron, page by page, just to show you what's available. We're going to go through an example workspace. You can skip this tour. There is a built-in tour that you can go through. It's for onboarding. It's to show you exactly what I'm going to show you today, but I think in my way, it's going to be a bit more in depth. So what we have here, I know it looks like a lot, but we're going to take it piece by piece. This is a dashboard for your campaign, and it's going to show the details of your campaign, what the name is, and the description. It's also going to let you choose some core ingredients. We briefly brought up the term ingredients earlier, but we'll go into more detail about what exactly ingredients are here in a minute. And then you can go to your ingredients pantry, which is where you keep all of your ingredients at, and you can edit them and retire them whenever you want. And then we have some question prompts for your players that are actively trying to source more inspiration as ingredients. And then we have a quick view of your inbox where it shows submissions from your players and any kind of direct messages they have, which that's not a working feature just yet, but it's planned to be one once we have a web application set up. In the center, we have your um, basically the hero section of your campaign. You could put a different image in there if you want, and then you can start a new session prep from here. You can also review other sessions that you started, whether those been sessions that you've prepared, or be like a session zero, or be a debrief session after you've ran a in-game session. And we'll talk more about how those get started here in a minute. And then on the right-hand side, you've got your player management, and that starts with the player portal. This is a local area network connection. So if you have any in-person players that want to connect with their phone or their tablet or their computer, they can do so with this QR code, or you can send them the link, copy it, paste it, or you just tell them the link right here. And then once they get connected with their mobile device, they'll show up here so you can approve them to be joined. And then at that point, you can send questions to your players. You can view your player's profile, which will allow you to send them a direct message or see files they've uploaded or any kind of entries that they've uploaded or ingredients that they've submitted for approval. And then you can close out the portal anytime. But if you keep it open, you can invite them to a collaborative world building session. Now, this is a great way to source some initial ingredients, inspiration from your players before starting any kind of session prepping for a new campaign. But there's also plenty of other ways that you can use a collaborative world building session, including the post session debrief. What we'll have here is we'll have the agenda, which are the broader themes of this collaborative world building session. And then in each agenda is your questions that are specifically part of that section. So, what's one thing you're excited about for this campaign? You could write your own answer as the game master, of course. Excited to kick some arse. Um, and then once some questions are populated by your players, which they'll be able to answer from their mobile device, you can start bringing them over to your cannon board. And whenever you bring that over, then you're basically preparing a list of different ideas that you really enjoy and that you want to create ingredients out of. And you can always send it back if you don't want to put it in, or you can also name them. So this one says, I'm excited to kick some arse. Maybe the ingredient name is arse kicking as a theme. We could do an ingredient type being a theme, arse kicking. And you can do different ingredient types like a player character, an NPC, location, item, faction. And you'll see later that when we generate ingredients from that pinned idea, that goes away. But we can see the ingredients arse kicking right here at the very bottom. And we can start typing in comments for it. And in the ingredients pantry that we'll see later, we can also add tags as a way to categorize them or to organize them for us to filter out when we're searching through our ingredients. So next, what I want to look at is where the ingredients go after you've captured them. And this is going to be the ingredients pantry. Your pantry is going to be filled with ingredients that are submitted by your players or that you've created yourself. And you can open them up, reread their description. You can add more tags. You can change the image for it. You can also mark it as basically a favorite. This is called a core ingredient. And a core ingredient is basically going to be pinned to the top. And when you're in a session preparation or a session recipe building session, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But it's also important if you enable any kind of AI inference features, which are not enabled by default. Those are entirely optional. From here, you can separate them by core ingredients or the type of ingredient it is. You can also review your player submissions. You can see here that you can request revisions if you don't quite understand where your player was going with their submission, or you can straight up decline it. And if you decline, you tell them a reason why you're declining it, or you can approve it, and it'll end up in the list. And then those that are declined, those will be stacked up in your history. And you can also resolve an ingredient, which means that the narrative arc for that ingredient is pretty much wrapped up. You don't see any reason why the ingredient's going to come back in the future. You can always bring it back if you want, but this is a way to make it to where the ingredient doesn't keep showing up in your list whenever you're preparing new sessions. All right, so returning to the dashboard, the next thing you can do once you have some ingredients is you can start new session prep. And this is just a quick description of what you're going to be expecting. But basically, we have this cauldron in the middle, and then we have our ingredients on the left-hand side that we've been collecting from our players and that we've been adding ourselves. And we could basically either focus in on our players, like Zane, for instance. He's got this location that he's interested in, the Ghost of Nebula, and we can add it. We can edit it from here. We can add some comments if we want. Drag and drop if we want as well. And then we've also got a space to name our session. So maybe we just name it the Ghost Nebula Returns. And maybe if we're making it about the Ghost Nebula, do something like Zane's stomping ground is run amok with alien goblin hybrid. Okay, and then we could, if we wanted to, add a new ingredient to, I guess, more specify or build out what those alien goblin hybrids really are. If we want to tie that to a faction, do that by dragging from our factions. If we want to add an item that maybe is important to the session or that the players can find, and then maybe some helpful NPCs to help the players. And then once you have enough ingredients, you can go ahead and click on Generate Narrative. And what that's going to do is, without any kind of inference features turned on, this is going to be very simple. It's going to take all the ingredients that you put in so far, and it's going to place them in this generic template in a way that is going to ask you what ingredient best fits each part of this outline. And then from there, you can go ahead and open it. You can either export it to whatever editor of choice that you want to do, or you can open it in this built-in editor. So this is our text editor. This is a block-based text editor, like if you've used Notion or if you've used WordPress, Gutenberg, or anything like that. Uh, Basically, you have these blocks that you can move up and down. You can duplicate them, you can delete them, and they come in different varieties. There's a paragraph block, header block, list blocks, quote block. You got your image block. You got these different templates. You can even create your own template of a reusable block. And then this is basically one for one copied over our ad lib generation from the session builder into this text editor. We can edit it freely. We can also add things from this rulebook column that we can expand on the right. And I try to include some basic things, but you can, of course, add your own homebrew rules. That's really where it shines, is adding your own rules that you need to remember or recall. And if you do, then you can drag it as a GM note into your session prep as a way to, in the margins, tell yourself, hey, when I'm running this encounter or something, don't forget this special rule that I really want to use to make this encounter unique. And then once you're once you're happy with what you've written, then you can export to another word editor if you want, or you can simply save, and this could be revisited from your dashboard. Now, after you've run a session, you can go to what's called a session debrief, and this is another version of that collaborative world building session that we saw earlier for session zeros. But in this way, we're asking for some future forward inspiration. What would the players like to see next time? Or what do they think is going to be the result of some major choice that they made this session or whatever? And as they're contributing their ideas, you can, again, generate some ingredients from that and name it, describe it, all that good stuff. So that's pretty much the walkthrough for what each major feature is in Campaign Cauldron. I did want to point out that we have some settings here that you can go to. And for your settings, you can export your data, import your data in case you have multiple devices that you want to use this desktop application for. Again, multiple Windows devices. That's what we have support for right now. And you can redo the onboarding tour if you want to as well, in case you forgot how to do anything. We also have options for applying some kind of inference provider, so you can connect it to Gemini, OpenAI, LM Studio. And what this does is it basically has additional features for each of the major screens that we talked about. This is entirely optional, but what it enables is some image generation if you want. This also enables some specified prep styles in case you want something more in depth than just the ad libs output that we saw for the session builder. This would be things that are based on Lazy Dungeon Master, Sly Flourish, or based on some very well known ways to build session campaigns out, like node crawls, or a mystery web, relationship web, or your own if you want to set up exactly how you like your outlines to appear like. And you also have granular permissions for what you want to give permission to the LLM to have authorship over. So if you don't want them to have any control over what encounters, or rather don't want them to apply any kind of token cost towards creating encounters because that's something you want to do personally, then you can have that disabled. Same with NPCs, locations, factions, basically the permission to create new ingredients on its own, essentially. You can have those enabled or disabled. And then we also have different options for how this application is displayed. Sorry for the flashbang ahead of time, but we'll go from dark to light mode. And then from light mode, we could do high contrast as well. It's just a different kind of dark to make it even more dark. And we also have different font styles that may make things a bit easier to read for some. And then you can control the size, the UI size. And then from here, we can go to my itch.io page. You can also send me an email if you have any kind of feedback for this application, if there's any kind of features that don't work the way that they should, or if you have ideas for things that you absolutely must include in here that would really help you out as a game master, or with this whole idea of having your players as co-authors. And I really look forward to hearing back. I really hope that what I hear is that this helps a lot of game masters avoid burnout, but also just as important, I hope it helps your players feel like they have the just out the door authority to role play with a shared world that you guys all built together, instead of them feeling like, oh, well, this is the game master's world, and basically just playing through the game master's novel, that they're showing off, basically. Or what's more realistic is when players are just not sure how they're supposed to roleplay, or what they can actually interact with, what's okay to interact with, versus something that's going to derail the story or the game master or whatever. This is a way to tell them up front that you really care about their ideas, and that they're a shared part of this world, and that nothing is really canon until it hits the table, um, or until it's agreed on by the table at least. So I really hope this helps. All right, so next, I just want to briefly cover what changes once you enable inference, which would be connecting to an LLM API. I'm, for one, using Open Router, and that'll be for text inference, and then using Google Gemini for image generation. And it pretty much enhances each, or rather adds features to each major screen that we've gone through already. For one, you can generate images for your hero section. So, for instance, you click on generate, it has a bunch of different art styles that you can pick from. You can type in a larger prompt. Even if you don't type in a perfect prompt, what it's going to do is it's going to speak to the text model to enhance the prompt that we put in there, like so. That way you get a beautiful image on the other end, like so. Click on that. Now you've got your background for the hero photo of your campaign. And then also, when you go into a collaborative world building session, especially if you start a new one, then you'll have a bunch of different templates you could choose from. These range from your table etiquette type session zeros, talking about safety tools and how the GM runs their sessions and stuff, to actually playing out your first session like a pilot episode in order to figure out your characters during play, basically. And then to more broad, like building out locations and the cultures that surround where your players' characters will be inhabiting. But if you go to blank agenda and you can create your own from scratch, now you have this parse document for a quick setup. And what that does is you can upload basically any kind of adventure that you've already been working on, like this PDF here. Is going to read that, and it's going to try to create an outline of different agenda sections and then individual questions in each agenda section. I uploaded something that was an adventure I worked on in the past, and it's a bit spooky, so it's going to talk about unspeakable past for your characters and all that stuff. You can take out ones that you don't agree with, you can add more, and you click on Start Building, and they're all there. What this also does is, as your players and yourself, you answer these questions. So let's see, what's one moment you wish you could undo? My character betrayed their lord, causing the death of many soldiers. and usurpation. I didn't spell that right, but that's okay. Fair words and okay. So submitted. We'll just act like that's going to be canon. That's fine. We're going to say moment of regret, of unbearable regret, and that's going to be a theme. I'm going to put it as a theme. And then when you click generate ingredients, when you have an LLM connected, it's going to process that, and it can actually come back with multiple ingredient recommendations. So I mentioned to have a lord. I mentioned that there's another faction. And it looks like this time it just generated one. You might need to do it multiple times potentially in order to see those multiple pending, but that's okay. We'll just go ahead and finish that. We see that in our ingredients list. We can open it up, add comments, and then we're going to go back to our ingredients pantry. And from here, you can open up any ingredients that are on here. You can generate images as well. Another thing, you can parse any kind of existing documents you have, and the LLM will, just like we saw in the world building, or that I talked about anyway, it didn't exactly do it, but it'll come back and recommend a bunch of different ingredient types and names and all that that you can approve one at a time or decline one at a time, whatever. So that just helps speed things up, especially if you're importing something you've already been running, or you like to run modules that you've purchased. And then when you are doing a new session prep and you have an LLM connected, you can now select different prep styles. And instead of it giving it a ad lib output like we saw before, where it's basically having you choose while it pre-populates with just what you included in here, and having you polish it yourself in the editor, it'll actually give you something a bit more synergized, uh, immediately usable. And what it actually does is it's going to pull inspiration from the core ingredients that you didn't include, but it's going to treat them as if they're not immediately into session, but just influences over the campaign. And then it's also going to pull any kind of comments and especially added at mentioned other ingredients in your comments to then pull those contexts in as well to inform the overall output. So you can say that this session, it's going to have importance over a familiar echo as a theme. It's going to involve a void blade, and it's going to involve the void caller, and those are all going to be explicitly in the session. But the LLM is going to look through the comments on here to see if there's any lateral research to be done for things that may be related to backstories of any of these things, or just other influences that are of the campaign but not specifically in that session. So from there, you can go ahead and generate. It may take a minute or two depending on what model you've selected. All right, and then we see here it's got an output that's a lot more put together. And also, I didn't put any kind of hook in here, and if it detects that the hook is empty, it'll add one there. Of course, you can edit it, regenerate as much as you want. It also added a title there, and I didn't type one myself, so it fills in the blanks where it can. And then from here, we can go ahead and open in our editor, and perfect. It's in different blocks the way it should be. What's also added in the text editor is a AI assistant on the left-hand side. And if I say something like, what are some novel ways we can introduce things material passed. So what it's going to do is it will come back with several recommendations. Again, it may take a minute or two, depending on what model you choose. I chose a thinking model, so it will take a little bit of time. All right, so that actually took a few minutes, but I'm not sure if I'm just going to cut that out or speed it up. Either way, we got some recommendations. And what you can do is you can either click Insert, or you can queue up these recommendations like so. And then that way, what you could do is you can get rid of the ones that you don't want, and then you can continue asking questions like, what are some rules I can leverage? Maybe like a home brew rule I can leverage to allow the players to leverage to use the environment against or during combat. Okay, so we can continue asking questions and continue queuing things up. And when we have uh, as many suggestions as we want, or just all of our questions addressed, then we can actually process them in bulk. And what it'll do is it's going to rewrite the entire outline, but synergizing or integrating all of the different suggested pieces that you have queued up. In the meantime, while we're waiting for that, in the rulebook section, you can also parse existing documents for it to fill in more rules. And that also includes you could do for homebrew as well. Also didn't show it earlier, but you can click on view and it will open up tabs of the rules that you're interested in. If you drag a rule into your document, it'll create a note there that you can reference while you're during play. All right, took a little while, a few minutes. Again, it's really going to depend on what model you end up choosing. And I would say you probably don't need a very powerful model in order to give you recommendations that are this thorough. You just need something that's going to follow directions well. And I think most modern LLMs will be able to do so. So you'll see, still able to stack up in the queue. And then and I actually clicked on insert on one of these rather than queue. And what it does is it'll redo the proper section of your outline to integrate that specific change that you're making. But if you click on process for multiple things, it should diffuse this across the document where it makes sense. And then we'll see here, it did add a bunch more context to the character section. And also it added a bunch of home rules to the locations as well, and to the threats section as well. So good changes, and it cleared the queue so you can start over again. All right, let me know in the comments if you have any questions. More than happy to answer. This is just the first version of this, and I fully expect that in the next month or two, it's going to look totally different, and that things that might not work perfectly now will get tightened up as time goes by, and especially because of your feedback. All right, thank you so much.